Ancient technology comments. So as you can see here, I pointed out the fact that there's a video of this title, How Sand Built the Great Pyramid, which sounds like a great title. Sounds like sand was used to create the Great Pyramid, which I'm, all for seeing some proof of it. I watched the video and the video didn't show how to use sand to build the pyramids. All it showed was there was sand, special type of sand found inside the pyramid, and that's it. It's a type of sand that's like extra slippery, so it's good for sliding things. So it's like, okay, they could have used that sand to slide and move around stone. Okay, that's a potential for the sand, but you didn't prove that that's what it was used for, and you didn't even have a whole entire like explanation of how the sand would be used. You just mentioned that there was there was some sand in the sand. And at the microscopic level, it's pretty round, so there's a whole bunch of little balls instead of being jagged like most sand. Most sand, most common sand, tend to be jagged, right? So very rough. But this type of sand was very smooth because of the fact that all the sand particles are round, orbs basically. So basically, very small microscopic ball bearings. So it's like, yeah, ball bearings make things easier. So I'm a fan of that type of sand. It's like, yes, that's great sand. They can be used to move things. It has some use. It's good sand for hourglass, stuff, right? But he didn't show it being used in any creative way to build the Great Pyramid. So it's like, okay, so the title is misleading. How sand built the Great Pyramid. So then I just pointed that out. But then I was like, I figured out how they can use sand to build the Great Pyramids. Because one of the things people complain about, even in this person's comment here, about the 70-ton, blocks, is like, how would you use sand to lift the, 70-ton blocks? Because how did they get lifted? How did you lift 70-ton blocks, right? How did the ancient humans or ancient Egyptians did it, right? So it's like, okay, a couple different ways would be cranes, right? Well, pretty much cranes would be the most common way, right? Cranes, alien technology, some people would like to say, but mainly it would be like, lifting, right? Cranes. But I have a couple other methods. One method would use cranes, another one would use ramps, and then now I have the sand method, which eventually I'll make a video about it. Right now, I just want to just point out that I have a method, and I'll explain it, but I want to show it in action because I got sand and rocks and stuff that I can do a little video demo of it. But the idea is you need some type of housing, like a wall around the block you want to lift, right? Then you want to fill the empty space in that um, in the enclosure with sand, right? Close to the top of the object that the block you're trying to lift, right? But you want to make sure you already have ropes wrapped around the block, of course, right? Then the idea is you're gonna slowly, obviously because the block is heavy, it's gonna be hard to quickly lift it up, but you're gonna slowly, inch by inch, centimeter by centimeter, you know, little by little, lift it up. And what's going to happen when you're lifting it up little by little, the sand around the sides is going to go under the block. And so now there's sand under it. That sand, let's say it's an inch of sand, is now lifting the 70-ton block. So then you pull the block up another inch and it fills up with another inch of sand. And you keep doing that over and over until you get to 10 feet of sand. So now the 70-ton block is supported up by sand, right? And you just keep doing that process over and over again until you get to a higher, elevation. And that's a way to make it where you can lift that 70-ton block. So, like I said, I'll show an example of that later on. But I just want to, quickly document that idea of using sand to lift up. And just by hearing what I'm saying, you can understand it. Like, oh yeah, that sounds like it works. And I'll show some proof of it later. But yeah, it's a simple idea. It's like, oh, that's clever, because that's something they can do. They can create a enclosure, kind of like a wall around the block, and then fill it up with sand and then lift it up, right? And then they can always recollect the sand, right? And just do that process over and over again to lift things up. So, what else? But as you can see, this person, wants to be ignorant as always. People not being open-minded to ideas. It's one thing to disagree with me. It's another thing to just think you know everything. So if anybody says anything, suddenly you want to dismiss them. But what's so ironic, the people with the lowest IQ are the ones who think they're smarter, think they know everything, but when you ask them how to do stuff, they don't have an answer. They just say, oh, nobody knows. No, sorry, sir. You mean you don't know. But I, who claim to be smart, I do know, and I say I know how it's done, and I can explain it. I can even make a video showing my idea of how it's done. See, smart people can show how to do something. Smart people don't think, oh, it can't be done. Smart people think it can be done, and then they do it. This is because here's the funny thing. Steve Jobs wanted the iPhone to be made. He told his engineers to make it. A couple of his engineers were like, oh, it's impossible, right? These are the ones who says it couldn't be done. But he insisted it can be done. And then he kept going, arguing with them back and forth, and he eventually was able to find some engineers that can get it done, right? So wouldn't you say those engineers that made the iPhone a reality, wouldn't they be smarter than the other engineers that said it couldn't be done? Clearly it could be done, because he found some engineers that can make the iPhone happen, and that's why iPhones exist. Because it can be done. The Great Pyramid exists. Why? Because it can be done. So this idea of like, oh no, no one knows how it was built, bullshit. We know how it's built. What we don't know is 100% why was it built. But we got ideas of how to build a freaking pyramid. We actually built a whole bunch of shit on this planet, and we still building big things. So this nonsense of, oh, we don't know how things were built, that's bullshit. We know how things are built, how to build things. That's why somebody built something is usually the mystery, but how is not much of a mystery. Because we could say, oh, ancient humans had technology similar to ours. It's possible. If we have technology, of course they would, because they're humans. That seems pretty logical, but some people tend to be ignorant. Like, no, they're not as smart as us. Correct. They're not as smart as us. They're actually smarter. That's the funny thing. Ancient humans are smarter because they don't pretend to be smarter than the people before them. They learn from their past to get smarter in their present. Not assume they're already smart, so they ignore the knowledge of the past and think everyone before them is stupid. No, they know that without the past, there is no present, which means there's no future. They learn from the past. The reason why we're studying the past is so we can learn. We're not studying the past so we can make fun of them. Like, look at these people in the past. They're so dumb. We're so clever. Like, no, we're studying them because we're trying to learn from them. Like, yo, how did you build the pyramids without airplanes and tanks and the shit that we got, and satellites and internets and smartphones? How did y'all build the pyramids without the shit that we got? Clearly, they have to be smarter to be able to do it without the shit we got. That's the point. That's why it's interesting to study the past, because it's interesting to see how was things done without what we got, without modern day shit. In reality, more likely it's because they had better shit than we did. Just saying. Just super saying.